I'm claiming fair use to cover the images, audio and video clips contained in this review. They're here to give background and illustrative information regarding the topic. I acknowledge that all material belongs to the copyright holders. I highly encourage the purchase of all Blu-rays, DVDs and CDs mentioned in this review. Help the artists out. You won't regret it. That's it. Let's start. I'd been waiting nearly 25 years for another album from Danny Elfman. That wait ended back in June 2021 when he released his brand new solo album entitled Big Mess. I became a fan of Elfman's after discovering his off-the-wall new wave rock band Oingo Boingo back in 1996. However, Big Mess is not a new Oingo Boingo album. Elfman has been very clear that the likelihood of that happening is practically zero. However, it seems with time on his hands during the pandemic, the inspiration struck him to create the collection of tracks that make up this new album. The big question is, was it worth the wait? Well, it's been a bit of a tricky video to make as I've got mixed feelings about this album. So, with that being said, let's dive on in and see if we can't make sense of this big mess. Danny Elfman first rose to fame with the theatrical cabaret troupe, ran by his brother Richard Elfman, the Mystic Knights of the Oingo Boingo. This disbanded around the late 70s and was reformed as the cult rock new wave band, now simply titled Oingo Boingo. The group ended in 1995 due to Elfman's shift into film composition and general dissatisfaction with touring and maintaining the signature Oingo Boingo sound. Since the late 80s until now, Elfman is one of the most in-demand film soundtrack composers. His big break being Tim Burton's breakout film Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And since then, he's gone on to compose the soundtracks for Batman and Batman Returns, Good Will Hunting, Spy Kids, Beetlejuice, Spider-Man, 50 Shades of Grey, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and Darkman, to name a very small selection of his film work. He's also created the iconic theme tunes for both The Simpsons and Tales from the Crypt. His most iconic performance, though, is that of the singing voice of Jack Skellington from The Nightmare Before Christmas.
What's this? What's this? There's color everywhere. What's this? There's white things in the air.
And he was also responsible for writing the songs for that film as well. Elfman is someone whose name that you may not recognise, but you would definitely have heard of his work. In 2020, he was booked to perform the Coachella Festival. Elfman had planned on showcasing songs from Oingo Boingo, some soundtrack compositions, and some new material covering past, present and future. Unfortunately, this was cancelled due to COVID and left Elfman frustrated but inspired. He's always remarked that the songs he wrote in Oingo Boingo were always from the point of view of a character and never reflected his own personal view. He said that a lot of it was written to get a rise out of people. However, he mentioned in an interview that he saw the state of the world around him in politics and the pandemic and was compelled to write from his own voice. Tracks such as Choose Your Side and Love in the Time of COVID were inspired by Trump and the pandemic isolation. Due to planning the Coachella show, he had turned down film composition work, and so was understandably disappointed and upset at its cancellation. In addition to this, isolation and quarantine measures added to his frustration. On top of all of that, he was incredibly concerned about the political direction of the United States under its controversial president. Honestly speaking, the political tracks could also apply to the controversial governance of the UK too, where personality took precedent and policy was incredibly divisive. All of this inspired him to pick up his guitar and record. by August of 2020, he had created 18 songs. He claimed in an interview that it was entirely possible that the songs he recorded may never be heard by anyone outside of his close friends and family. However, his agent suggested that, with the amount of songs he'd created, there could be an album. They agreed upon a release deadline. Elfman insisted, otherwise he said that he'd continue reworking and fine-tuning them forever. On the 29th of October 2020, we were treated to the first music video/single from the album, a dark synth rock tune called Happy.
Everything is shutting down. Shutting down, shutting down. Poison, poison. Happy, 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 happy.
I absolutely loved this and hoped that this would set the tone for the entire album. However, subsequent singles took on a very different sound, which was more in keeping with the ambience and feel of the album. My personal view on it is generally that it's a rather downbeat album, in which he certainly captured the frustration and anger that came from a global pandemic and a divisive political leader. The album contains 18 tracks, and my appreciation of it breaks down like this. 9 of them I really like, 2 of them I think are okay, and the other 7 really don't do that much for me at all. The main sound of the album is industrial metal, which isn't my cup of tea at all.
Just like me, the thing I make big plans for change. Don't make me do things that we'll both regret.
I prefer my cynicism a little more synth-based and bouncy. The tracks that I do like are the orchestral or faster-paced songs where that Oingo Boingo vibe creeps through. Indeed, there are a few songs which wouldn't have been out of place on the final album, Boi-Ngo, back in 1995. They certainly feel like they're picking up from where that final album left off. In fact, Elfman hasn't completely turned his back on his Oingo Boingo years. The final song of the album is called Insects. This was a cover of the same track from Oingo Boingo's 1982 second album, Nothing to Fear.
Tiny insects in my head, tiny insects everywhere, tiny insects in my head. Watching insects make romance, insects make me want to dance, dance, they make me want to dance.
It's been rearranged on Big Mess to fit in with the industrial sound of the rest of the album, and has an extra verse written as a jab at politicians.
Tiny insects in my hair, tiny insects everywhere, tiny insects in my pants, watching insects make romance, insects make me want to dance, dance, dance.
Whilst it's lovely to hear a classic Oingo Boingo track reworked here, the original will always be my go-to version. I mean, that said, there's a few nice interesting little flourishes on the Big Mess version, but it will always feel like it's missing something without that classic Oingo Boingo brass section. Whilst not on the album, Elfman popped up around the time of the Big Mess release with an acoustic cover of one of my favourite Oingo Boingo deep cuts. Running on a Treadmill was a fantastic synth track, also from 1982's Nothing to Fear, which Elfman had re-recorded and expanded on.
Running on a treadmill after you, and I'm running on a treadmill now. Running on a treadmill after you, and I'm running on a treadmill now.
It's now a slower, more orchestral and melancholic working of the track, which I thought was incredible. As I said, this didn't appear on Big Mess, but it was a really pleasant bonus for all of us Oingo Boingo fans. I recommend that you check out the full video, after you finish this one of course. It's also interesting to note that both Steve Bartek and Warren Fitzgerald were involved in this album, both being ex-Oingo Boingo members, and along with them, current Devo drummer Josh Freese was the drummer on these tracks. Freese and Bartek have most recently collaborated with Gerald V. Casale from Devo on his latest 2 singles. However, I digress. So, despite my criticism, I'm absolutely delighted that Elfman felt inspired enough to record and release a new album. 11 out of 18 tracks is certainly enough to consider this a success. I mean, I've certainly had albums where the enjoyment ratio of tracks is way lower. Along with the standard album release, there was also a fantastic deluxe box set put out. This contained the full album on vinyl, a life-size light-up replica of Elfman's hand, autographed print, a 60-page art book featuring the designs created for the album by Elfman and Sarah Sitkin, along with a 2-vinyl set featuring 18 remixes of tracks from the album. It's an absolutely sumptuous set, but runs at a very costly $225, which is certainly more than I can afford. However, it's a wonderful item for the hardcore collectors out there. Fair play to Elfman for creating the music that he wanted to. That should always be the point of an artist. Although he did claim at one point that he was considering it becoming a synth album, which definitely would have boosted my appreciation for it. I hope that Big Mess proved enough of a success that Elfman considers a follow-up album in the future. He was creatively inspired to produce 7 music videos from the album as well, which are weird, haunting, scary,
Just like me to think you need my energy.
and brilliant. Despite the delays, Elfman finally got to play the Coachella Festival in April 2022, and it proved to be a roaring success. Elfman performed 2 shows consisting of Oingo Boingo tracks, movie soundtrack scores, and Big Mess songs. So, it seems that all good things come to those who wait. Reception of the show was overwhelmingly positive, and various clips have shown up on YouTube. Hopefully there'll be more to come in the future, and I'm sure that I saw plans for a UK show this year, and if it's close by then I am definitely going. So, I'd like to highlight a couple of the tracks that stood out to me from the album. If you like what you hear, then I strongly encourage you to check out and buy the full album. You never know, everything is subjective, and you might appreciate the heavier, more industrial tracks that missed the mark for me.
And the crowd cries out with the glorious sound, and the bonfire burns on the fertile ground, and the fireworks light up in the moonbeam sky. The children marching with their Labrador big eyes.
This one as well.
In time, we all create ourselves just in time. The aliens are about to invade us.
You absolutely can't forget this one.
Native intelligence, hard to find. Animal eloquence, sometimes searching for relevance online. Here comes the eulogy. Trust me, children, trust me, darling. I could blindly take any road I saw, and the world seemed comfortably small. And I danced with the lilies under moonlight, and I danced with the lilies under moonlight, danced with the lilies under moonlight, all night long.
Those tracks alone would have made an utterly fantastic album for me. On the 12th of August 2022, we were treated to a 2-disc remix album entitled Bigger, Messier. This contained 21 tracks of alternative takes and remixes, obviously, of the songs taken from Big Mess. Honestly speaking, this album won't enjoy repeat spins from me. Between the 2 discs, there are 8 tracks that I'd say that I liked, and some of them are just tracks from Big Mess with alternative vocals by Trent Reznor and Blixer Bargeld. I was delighted to see that one of my favourite remixes, Happy by Boy Harsher, got a music video.
Everything's shutting down. Everything's shutting down.
A lot of these remixes I just found annoying. I mean, I don't mind remixes that take a song and rebuild and extend it with the tune composed in a different style. However, I'm not keen on remixes that substitute tune and melody with banging drums, car alarms, and samples of a word or a phrase from a track. There was a deluxe version of the album released with additional remix tracks. These also appeared on various music streaming sites from November 2022, however I've not sought them out. Anyway, as with Big Mess, here's a couple of samples of tracks that I did enjoy from the remix album. As ever, if you enjoy the music you hear in this review video, then please do buy the albums and support the artist. Thanks very much for your company. Now, I'm hoping to have more episodes made and uploaded on a regular basis this year, so I appreciate your continued support. If you've enjoyed this video, then please do like, comment and subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time, why not check out some of my previous episodes of Amazing World of Stuff. Episode 1 looks at the Garbage Pail Kids sticker series Revenge of Oh the Horrible, parodies of cult horror films with a Garbage Pail Kid twist. I look at a selection of the stickers and the movies that they're inspired by. Episode 2 looks at issue 1 of Terror, a rare UK horror magazine from the very early 90s. I go through its features, adverts and news to discuss this rare curio from the 90s horror scene. Episode 3 covers The Phantom of the Paradise, a fantastically bonkers horror comedy musical by Brian De Palma, based on Faust, Dorian Gray, and of course, The Phantom of the Opera. Episode 4 was Halloween special, in which I chat about controversial UK supernatural drama Ghostwatch, a show so well made that people thought it was real, and the BBC banned it for 10 years. With episode 5, we jump from Halloween to Christmas, as we examine cult rock band Electric Six's Kickstarter Christmas album, A Merry Electric Sixmas. This may be your only chance to ever hear samples from it, as it's incredibly rare. We're travelling back in time with episode 6, as we go through the book Scarred for Life, a phenomenal book which examines the darker side of popular culture from the 1970s, when TV wasn't afraid to mess with kids' heads. Episode 7 is all about my most wanted toy and favourite character as a kid, original Generation 1 Megatron from the Transformers line, the shape-changing gun robot that wouldn't make it to the shop shelves today. Episode 8 is my chance to indulge my love of synthwave music with the documentary The Rise of the Synths. This looks at the humble beginnings and influences of the synthwave scene to its influences on the mainstream. Episode 9 looks at the rock and roll biography comic of Oingo Boingo. This was put out by Acme Inc. and is a potted history of the band featuring a range of art styles, and is well worth checking out as a complement to this video. Episode 10 covers 2 incredible documentaries taking an affectionate look back at 1980s horror films and their cultural impact. In Search of Darkness Part 1 and 2. Each documentary was 4 hours long, although my review isn't. I go through the films featured, the cast of genre personalities, and the poster art that came with the movies. On top of that is all of my 15-second horror shorts and the music videos that I've made. There'll be much more coming to this channel in the new year, so please remember to like, comment and subscribe. Thanks again for joining me. This is the first video of the new year, so I wish you all a fantastic 2023. Hopefully there will be new videos on the channel each month. That's the plan anyway. Stay safe, gang, and I'll see you next time.